Hola, les doy la bienvenida a la tercera edición de London Spanish Book Zine Fair. Esta es la charla de bilingüismo en el aprendizaje y en la producción de libros bilingües con la educadora Claudia López-Prieto, la escritora McDonald y la escritora y editora Natalia. Estamos en la charla bilingüe de Bilingual Books. En esta charla el panel va a hablar acerca de cómo el bilingüismo nos ha afectado a nivel, les ha afectado a nivel personal, el bilingüismo a nivel profesional, y también sobre la importancia de los recursos bilingües en la educación. Claudia, Natalia y Alex, les doy la bienvenida y las dejo como para que conversen en esta charla en la cual seguramente vamos a aprender mucho y se van a develar muchas dudas. Así que, bueno, bienvenidas nuevamente. Gracias.
So I don't mind starting. We said that we were going to do this with a mixture of Spanish and English. I mean, the theme is bilingualism. So let's stay in tune with the word of the day, shall we call it? So we're going to, it's a quick introduction, I think each of us are going to do. So good afternoon all. I am originally from Bogotá, Colombia. I have been working in education for the last 14 years and I specialize in EAL, which stands as English as an Additional Language. I teach and work with students who are new to the country or have been here for a short time and are at a beginner stage of English. So working with bilingual, trilingual children, I'm surrounded by them all day long. At present, I am the EAL teacher and Raising Achievement Coordinator at a London secondary school. Now, many people ask me why I went into teaching English and not Spanish, as I'm Colombian, so my first language was Spanish. So that's always, something very strange for people, I think, when they find out my career choice. Now, I chose this career path as I remember not understanding English when I was at school here in the UK. I remember having support with learning the language and being made to feel inadequate. My bilingualism was not praised. And I don't want any student to feel how I felt back then, which was not very clever. Dumb, as students would say. Having teachers say to my mother, who also had limited English, that I was a daydreamer, not taking into account that I just didn't understand what was being taught. Feeling excluded and not being able to identify with my peers, I was physically different, spoke differently, and of course ate very different food. We lived in the suburbs of Croydon and attended a white middle-class school where plátano definitely wasn't on the menu. I remember taking my arroz con pollo and, people looking at it thinking, what on earth is that? Presently, I work at St. Gabriel's College. We are a diverse school. Due to our location, our main cohort of EAL students are those with Latin American descent, all at different stages of language acquisition. Those who are fluent to absolutely new beginners. We have on roll 605 students, 35 different languages are spoken at the school. 56% of the school speaks another language apart from English, with the main languages being Spanish, Yoruba, Portuguese and French. The number of Spanish speakers has significantly changed in the past 4 years, numbers increasing steadily. We have now 133 Spanish speaking students, which for a London school is quite a lot. This rise in numbers is clearly seen within the Latin American community, as we can see that our community is growing in numbers. Latin Americans are the largest and fastest growing migrant group in the London borough of Lambeth. Now, this all goes hand in hand with our word of the day, bilingualism. My language, culture and traditions are deeply rooted and embedded in who I am. And I am proud of how much my heritage and language has to offer. This plays a big part in my teaching, especially as we have so many Latin American students at the school. I want to be able to offer my students something that I did not have growing up in London, to empower them that they too should feel proud of speaking another language, of their music and customs and show this off in the school environment. It has now become the norm at St. Gabriel's College to see students practicing a range of dances, for students to walk down the corridor with confidence wearing a cumbia skirt, seeing a sombrero or tiao fluttering down the corridors, and of course hearing Spanish in the corridors, from those who are fluent in the language to those who choose to practice it at school. That they too matter, and that their language is celebrated and also part of the school life.
Wow.
That's great. Shall I introduce myself now?
Yeah.
Right. So my name is Alex McDonald. I've been invited to take part in this mostly because of my work as a bilingual children's books author, which I've got one book out and I'm working on about 3 more at the moment, all bilingual, all Spanish and English. I first got interested in bilingual studies because of my background. My mother was Spanish. She's not with us anymore. She was Spanish. She was born in Madrid, but moved to England when she was about 15. And I think it was very difficult for her at that point because she obviously had to learn English very quickly to be able to pass her exams at that age and continue with her education. But unfortunately, when I was born, she decided not to bring me up bilingual. My father's English, and we only spoke English at home. I obviously did have some exposure to Spanish language, but mostly at my grandparents' house, who also lived in England. They would all be speaking Spanish in the kitchen, and I had no idea what they would be talking about, apart from maybe a few words here and there. And of course, on holidays to Spain, I'd pick up a few phrases, but unfortunately, nothing close to being fluent. But I was very proud, still am, of being half Spanish. It was definitely seen as something quite exotic, I think, by my friends and other parts of my family who thought that my mother was quite exotic. And it led me to decide to come and live in Spain, which is where I'm living now, and where I've been living for the last 14 years. So now I am fluent in Spanish. I have a very strong British accent when I speak Spanish, but that's part of me. And I have I'm bringing up my 2 children bilingual. I have a 7-year-old daughter who is completely bilingual. I'd say her English is as good as her Spanish, maybe even a bit better. She loves speaking Spanish. She loves reading. She loves reading and speaking English. Has completely embraced the English culture. Even though we've only really been to England with her a few times, but she definitely feels English and Spanish, which is wonderful. And my younger son, who's 4, well, he is speaking more Spanglish at the moment. It's definitely more Spanish than English, but he understands pretty much everything I say, and he's going down the right route. And my work background is actually in science. I trained I studied genetics, and I trained as a clinical geneticist in England, and I then continued to work in the same field here in Spain. And I found that, being English has helped with getting jobs, particularly here. And I'm now working as a language assistant in a high school. So I'm here trying to help them with their bilingual studies, because here there are a lot of subjects which are taught in English in the public schools. So it's a new start for me, and definitely a new experience. And it's all thanks to being bilingual, really.
Perfect. Okay, shall I start? Thanks, Alex.
Yeah.
So I'm Natalia, and I don't really know where to start with this whole bilingual world, because it's completely changed my life for the better.
I mean, I'm half Spanish and half English, and I've always been proud of this, even from the age of 4. I've always known that I'm different from everyone else in my class, which wasn't always, I didn't always think was a positive thing, hence why now I write bilingual books for children, and both of my books have main characters who have dual heritage. So the whole point of my books are to empower children to be really proud of their dual heritage. I mean, when I was younger, I did have kids make fun of my accent when I went to Spain, and the same when I was in the UK. I would have some of my classmates laugh at the way my mum would speak to me in Spanish in front of everyone else, or the way she would pronounce my name. And when I was younger, I didn't understand this. I wanted to be the same as everyone else. So therefore, I wrote these books, because when I was younger, there weren't any bilingual books which would have helped me and which would have made me feel proud of my dual heritage. So I just went along with it. I mean, I did say I was and I've always been proud of both of my heritages, but there were days in the UK where I thought, why can't I be the same as everyone else? Why do I have to be so exotic? But then when I did go to Spain, I did feel proud of my English heritage. So it was growing up, there's always been a mixture of being proud, but also wanting to be the same. You know, I think kids, we constantly changing our minds. We want this one day, we want to feel that another day. So I wanted to put that in both of my books, and to show kids that it's perfectly normal to feel embarrassed some days because you're not Spanish enough or you're not English enough. So why not embrace having both cultures? I think that would have definitely helped me having similar books to this when I was younger. And I know there are plenty of bilingual books out there, but I haven't found any where the main character demonstrates, you know, how proud she is for being bicultural. So yeah, that's really opened doors for me. I mean, I feel so lucky that I'm able to speak in Spanish to my family in Spain, because if I was to go to Spain every year and not know how to speak the language, I'd feel really lost. I'd probably feel a little bit sad that I wouldn't be able to maintain the relationship that I do have now. So that's really helped. I've made friends from Spain, Latin America. So it's made me be friends with people from all around the world. At the age of 23, I traveled South America on my own, despite this anger in both sides of my family. So my English family and Spanish family were furious, but I kept saying to them, look, don't worry, I speak the language, nothing's going to happen. A lot of women travel now, it's not what it used to be like. So my experience traveling South America really did improve, I think, because I could speak the language. I was able to speak to the locals. I was able to find out a bit more about their cultures. It was just an amazing experience, and I think that's always going to be part of me. So not only being, you know, bicultural, being half Spanish, I'm absolutely fascinated with Latin American culture, food, the music. It's not only opened up a world of Spain, but opened up the world of Latin America, which I'm still fascinated. Once things are a bit back to normal, I would love to continue to travel South America. And now that I'm writing bilingual books for kids, I would love to base it on many more Latin American countries. And I've even thought about publishing books in different languages now. So I'm thinking about publishing books in French and in German, but with the same theme of being proud of your culture. So it's been really exciting. I quit my job in May to dedicate myself to writing bilingual books and having my own publishing company. I did approach many publishers in the UK. And to be honest, I don't think they understood the concept. I don't think they really understand much about bilingualism. I kind of gave up, but then 8 months later, I decided, you know what, if they don't want to publish my book, why don't I open a publishing company? I had no idea what I was doing, and I'm still learning today, but I thought, you know, we've got the internet now, online shopping. If they're not in all the bookstores, it doesn't matter. I can sell them online. And I'm so glad that I didn't stop my dream. And I thought, just open your own publishing company, because there are so many kids around the world who are going to benefit from my books. And I even had teachers in the US who are dual teachers, and they thanked me for publishing books because it's helped their Mexican students so much identify with the main character. And to be honest, I was only going to publish one book, and I based my first book, The Spanglish Girl, on my upbringing, being half English, half Spanish. But the day that I published The Spanglish Girl, I thought, why don't it doesn't just need to be one book, why don't I try and publish as many books as possible? So that's when I thought of the idea, my second book, The Mexiglish Girl, where she talks about being half Mexican, half English. And I want to do so many now, and I'm doing it mainly to help bilingual kids, because there, as I mentioned earlier, there weren't many books like this as a kid, and they would have really helped, especially in being a kid in the 90s in Brighton. I didn't really know many Spanish families, maybe one or two. So I constantly went through the motions of, one day I thought, why do I have to live in the UK? I want to live in Spain, or this will constantly change. I would feel the same when I was in Spain. I think, I feel so British, but I didn't know this as a kid. I just felt confused. But now as an adult, I realized this is completely normal. Why don't we just embrace both our cultures? It's not everything's black and white. I don't just have to be Spanish or English. I can be both. And I'm sure this goes for all bilingual kids out there. They can embrace both. And it's fine if they feel a bit more English one day, or they feel a bit more Mexican the next day. It's totally fine. So that's my message on my books. And I really hope it gets to as many bilingual kids' houses as possible, and I really do hope it helps them, because I know for a fact it would have helped me. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I had a book like yours when I was growing up.
Yeah, I'm sure it helped. Would have helped.
Yeah, I think it's so important having books that children can identify themselves with, and that they can see themselves represented. You know, because we all come from different parts of the world. We all experience different things in our life. And for example, you both being, of dual heritage, we can say, is going to be completely different to someone who's just moved here and just learning the language. But what we can all identify with is that we speak another language, and that we feel part of another culture. And, just as a mother, having, teaching my daughter Spanish, well, I don't even say teaching, it's just part of our life. She was immersed in the language since she was born. It was, I couldn't find books in Spanish here. It was whenever I'd go to Colombia, I'd come back with loads of books in, buy lots of books there, or I'd ask family members to send them to me, so that she could have, that quality time of reading. Because reading is so important. Can't stress the importance of reading. Please read. Read to your children. It's so important. And if you want, your mother tongue, your language to be part of their life, reading is a huge part of that. And it's a fun way for them to learn the language. They don't even know they're learning the language, because they're just simply listening to a story. They're listening to the sentence formation. They're listening to the grammar. They're listening to how the sentences run naturally, in a natural way of speaking. So it's just so important for children to have that, and to be able to identify with characters in books. And I would say this regardless of whether they're bilingual. Children need to see themselves identified in books and in literature, for them to feel like they are part of society.
Exactly.
That's why I started writing my bilingual books, because I pretty much read to my daughter and my son every night, and they have their favorites, which maybe they might want to read of their father the next night, or vice versa. And because their father always speaks to them in Spanish, and I always speak in English, maybe there's some books that I would have to translate, or vice versa. And I thought, well, the only bilingual books that we have here are things like The Hungry Caterpillar. We don't really have any others. And there's so many books that we love, like Dr. Seuss, which is very difficult to translate. So I thought, wouldn't it be great to have something from the same person? You know, I could create something that works in both languages without it having to be translated. So, and for me, it's a little bit of a challenge. I like thinking of a verse and trying to work out how I can make it work in the other language. And if it doesn't quite work, but almost, and then I go tweaking both languages until I get it to work in both. And basically it came from that, because we found there aren't very many bilingual books. And if there are, they're just, you know, translated, and it's a shame, really.
I mean, that's why I just decided to write bilingual books. If there aren't any out there, this goes for anything. If there's something that you really want, a product, a book, and you don't see it out there, just do it yourself. Because I'm sure there are thousands, millions of people who are going to want to read the book, and it's going to help them. So that's what I did. I just decided, you know, why aren't there any books out there that talk about dual heritages, or books that talk a bit more about different cultures? And also my books do talk about kindness. It's better to be kind to one another. Rather than making fun of your friend because they're a little bit different from you, they speak differently, they have a different accent or a different culture. It's just not, it's not nice to do that. And I'm hoping children will see that and realize, oh yeah, it's rather than laughing at someone who's different, find out why they're different, find out a bit about their culture. And I'm sure kids would love it. They would enjoy learning different things. Kids love hearing stories and learning about different things and different foods. So that's what I try to do in the books. And I would have loved that to, you know, go to a book when I was younger, because there's so many times I would go home, go running back to my abuela's house and say, they're all making fun of me because I'm the only British girl in the village. And sometimes the words that I say in Spanish, it doesn't sound Spanish enough. And she was great, but I'm sure she didn't also understand because she was Spanish. Whereas if you have resources that kids can refer to, they won't feel as different, and it'll make them feel empowered, which is what bilingual children should feel. They should feel empowered, not feel strange or weird. It's a fantastic thing, and they should know when they're kids what an advantage it's going to be when they're adults.
It really is an advantage.
Yeah, I was going to, so yeah, I think it's so important that as parents or as adults, we stress the importance of, you know, being able to speak another language. And I know that, you know, in, you know, Alex's case, that your mom didn't teach Spanish. And, you know, I have seen parents that they say, oh, I'm not going to teach my child Spanish. I just want to talk to them in English. And this is more for children who, you know, weren't born here, because I don't want them to have an accent. I don't want them I want them to learn English. And it's so important to learn a language. And I don't think people actually realize that, you know, if you speak another language, you are going to acquire the second language quicker, because you already have that language and that vocabulary and that sentence structure in your brain. So it makes it, you know, it makes the learning process a lot quicker than if you just arrive not speaking another language. And it's so beneficial. Yeah. And, you know, I hear a lot about things like accents. And actually, do you know why people have accents? Do you know?
It's to do with, is it to do with where they've grown up when they hear the accent from? No. Okay, so fun fact. So if you learn a language before, let's say, the age of 11 or 12, so for example, myself, I arrived here when I was 11. So when you are learning the second language, you are phonetically hearing the sounds of that second language that you are trying to learn. So you're not picking up an accent. After the age of 12, when you are trying to learn a second language, your brain automatically links, for example, let's say the sound in English to the closest sound that your brain can find in Spanish to pronounce a word. So that's where accents are
let's say born from. So, I've had lots of, people that say to me, oh my gosh, I still have an accent when I speak English. I've been here for 20 years. My brother, who arrived at the same time as me, doesn't have an accent at all. And it's because of that. It's because of the age that they are acquiring that second language. So it's got nothing to do with the person, nothing to do with how long they've been learning the language. It's all about to do linking the sounds phonetically, and the brain is doing that. So you can't do anything about it. So, I tell that a lot to my students, and they think that's incredibly amazing. But I think people feel paranoid when they speak a second language and they have an accent, and students feel that here as well. You've got the ones that are learning English that feel paranoid because they speak with an accent in English, and then you've got the British born Latin Americans, Latinos here at the school, who they have that complejo of speaking in Spanish to the fluent ones, because they say, oh no, I sound English when I'm speaking in Spanish, when the main thing that should be celebrated is that you're speaking the language regardless of the accent.
Absolutely.
That it's only an accent. At the end of the day, doesn't matter what accent you've got, be proud of it, because it tells the story of where you come from. I know it's so difficult to think that, honestly, on and off over the years, I've always thought, oh, when I speak in Spanish, it's not Spanish enough, especially when people make fun or they mimic, and it's something inside you is burning. You're like, oh, you don't understand, I'm really trying hard here. I thought I sounded Spanish, but now you said that I don't sound it enough. But we just got to be proud of it and just try not to worry about it, because we know everything about the language, and we know the culture and the food, and I think we shouldn't let it determine whether we speak another language or not.
Yeah, and I think it's as if you're in a bilingual family as adults, I think you have to be very, very conscious of the way that you speak to your children or those other members of the family. I've got lots of, you might hear, es que tiene acento inglés, and sort of it's like a family joke. No, because children are going to take that to heart, and it's, it might deter them from wanting to speak the language. So, be very conscious of those comments that you make as a family, as an adult. You should be praising your child. I mean, it's impossible if your child was born in the UK for them to have a full-blown, I don't know, in my case, my daughter having a Colombian accent, because she wasn't. She's fully bilingual. She will say, words that we use in Colombia. She, people when they hear her, they might say, oh, you sound Colombiana, but she will have that underlying accent because she wasn't born in Colombia. She wasn't raised in Colombia. And I think for lots of us that have left the country, that have migrated, we do lose parts of an accent, but that doesn't make us any less, it doesn't make me any less Colombian. So I do think we need to be conscious of the way we talk to our young people. I mean, I always say that to families, please, that's going to deter them from speaking the language. And, having this, I call it this talent, this gift of being able to speak a second language just opens so many doors. I always say I probably wouldn't have this job in this particular school if I didn't speak Spanish. I mean, I worked at a primary school before for 9 years, not one student spoke Spanish. I moved to a secondary school in Lambeth, which, has a large amount of Latin Americans. So as good as I am at my job, and my CV was great, I'm pretty sure that having Spanish on that CV to the other 3 people that didn't have Spanish, would have put me right up there straight away. It just opens so many doors, academically, your career-wise, socially, like Natalia has mentioned, being able to travel and identify with other cultures. It's just such a blessing to be bilingual.
Going back to what you were saying about how we talk about different languages in front of our children, so if they don't get embarrassed or anything. My 7-year-old now teases me about how I pronounce things in Spanish, but it's kind of like a running joke in our family. And, I'm very, very pleased that she's just, she enjoys speaking English so much, because I know there are other families where maybe they try to introduce another language, that isn't the language of their surrounding area, and the child doesn't want to speak it, or maybe understands but just resists. And I don't know if it's just because from the first day I was sort of singing to her and talking to her in English and she's had that sort of exposure, or just because she likes it. But I think she feels quite lucky as well, especially now at school, that it's a bilingual school and they have to do science, social science and natural science, as well as English, all in English. And for her, it's obviously going to be a lot easier than it is going to be for quite a few of her colleagues. Definitely.
I think, the younger, if children are exposed and they are immersed in the language, it's a lot easier to get them to acquire the language. When they hit teenage years, they can go from one way to another. So they can hit that they're just from this country, or they're just from this country. And I think that's not so much to do with language, but a mixture of emotions, hormones, and where do they feel that they fit in. So I think that if you have a really balanced for example, my daughter, home is completely in Spanish. Everything is so Colombian. She steps out the door and she's in the UK, but she has always had that growing up. So that's her stability. But with, I was also, I had my teenage years here. So I know what it's like in the UK, where you've got these families who have just migrated. And I remember when, I was a teenager and I wanted to go out to a shopping centre, which is quite normal here in the UK. That does not happen in Colombia. You do not go to shopping centres with your friends at the weekend. So as well as having that language shock, it's also that culture shock. And I think sometimes that can play with children and their language issues of wanting to maybe just speak Spanish or wanting to just speak English, because you do get, families that they'll come to me and say, ya no me quiere hablar en español, todo es en inglés. And, and it could be the opposite, but that has a lot to do with age. But, as a parent, when children grow up, they tend, and I can say 99%, embrace their language if they are shown how important it is in their home.
And I think it really helps. Obviously, with COVID, it's been restricted to travel. But I think if you can take your kids to Spain or wherever your family are from, I think that really helps. Because a big reason why I always felt proud and I loved everything about Spain is because I've got a large Spanish family. No one speaks English in my Spanish side of the family. So I had to speak to my family in Spanish. If I wanted to have a good relationship with my abuela, I would have to speak to her in Spanish, but I loved it. And I went to a traditional small village, so I got to learn all about the traditions, las fiestas, and I've got loads of cousins over there and friends. So I knew from a young age, okay, I have to speak Spanish if I want to talk to everyone. If I want to fit in, I need to speak the language, even if some words that I say in Spanish sound a little bit English, my accent, it doesn't matter, I've just got to do it. And I'm so thankful that my mum did speak to me in Spanish, because as I said, I feel I'm probably, if I was just English, I reckon I'd be a completely different person. I wouldn't be writing bilingual books. I wouldn't have traveled to South America. Oh, many of my jobs in the past, they've employed me because of my language skills. So it definitely changed my life for the better. And if every parent can speak to their kids in another language, even if they're not bilingual, if they can take them to Spanish immersion schools or Spanish nurseries or French nursery, whatever language it is, I think it would really help them for the better. I mean, I don't see any disadvantages in being bilingual at all.
There's absolutely no disadvantage out there at all. But so what you mentioned about you making that conscious decision of, learning a few words in Spanish, or trying to, be able to acquire enough Spanish to be able to, get yourself understood. Now that's something else that's so interesting about the bilingual brain. And that is, if you want to learn the language, you can. But, you know, there are many, in the case of students who migrate, that are at a block, they don't want to be here. And, you know, some people say, well, they've been here for a year and they don't know hardly any English. Why is that? Well, that's because the brain is making that conscious decision of trying to rebel about becoming a bilingual brain. If they don't want to learn the language, if they have that block, that bilingual part of the brain is just going to be on lockdown, and it's just not going to work until you make that conscious decision of wanting to learn the language and wanting to acquire the language. That's when you're going to get the language. So that's why it's so important for families to start, if you're a bilingual family, to get right there from the get-go. So that brain, your child's brain or the person's brain, it's just normalized. That's how the brain works in two languages. You're thinking in English, you're thinking in Spanish, then you put it all together. It might come out a bit in English, a bit in Spanish, but that's absolutely fine because the brain is still working in a bilingual way.
Yeah, it's quite interesting how young they can start to make that link and to try and translate words. Like my little boy who has just turned 4, and sometimes if he can't make himself understood in one language, he'll change to the other one, and he'll tell me the word in English, for example. Or when they sort of change the structure of a sentence, and you can see that they've translated it directly in their head. So it's very interesting how their brains work, and how all our brains work.
And that's because bilingual acquisition can take place in one of two ways, and that what you're talking about is simultaneous acquisition, which occurs when a child is raised bilingually from birth, or when the second language is introduced, sort of like, let's say, before the age of 3. The child learning the two languages simultaneously go through the same development stages as children learning one language. So for them, even though they're learning two languages, they think they're learning one. The brain is learning one. While bilingual children, you know, sometimes they might start talking slightly a little later than monolingual children. They will still become, you know, talking within the normal age range. And that's why I said there are no, you know, there's nothing negative about being bilingual. You know, another way that children can acquire, or people can acquire, a second language is sequential acquisition, which occurs when a second language is introduced after the first language is well established, and that's usually after the age of 3. So then the brain is thinking, hey, I'm learning a second language. This is sounds a bit different. Absolutely nothing negative about children learning a second language. I remember, you know, I know this, I'm an EAL specialist, so I know there's nothing, you know, it will not have a negative impact on their academics. If anything, it's going to have a positive impact. We see that EAL children usually get higher grades than monolingual children, and that's all because of this, that the brain is constantly working a lot harder, it's fighting, let's say, a lot more to get that vocabulary. Now, you know, I think it's, you know, bilingual children will have, they'll know less than 2,000 words than a monolingual child. But what's 2,000 words when they can speak a different language? What's 2,000 words when they can communicate to their families in Colombia, in Bolivia, in Ecuador, in Spain? What's 2,000 words?
They'll learn it as well. They'll eventually learn.
You know,
there's no rush.
They'll pick it up.
It's a marathon, it's not a race. So
we've got a couple of questions at the bottom. I don't know if we should maybe go answering some of them. What do you guys think?
I don't know if where to do that, or if we're going to get, I don't mind. We can get to answering questions.
Well, we've had yes, we're looking down here. Timothy 8 has said that he hopes that we're going to have a look. So let's have a look. I think there's a message more for you, Natalia.
I also have 3 half days. There aren't many books for them, Natalie. Of course, we can get in touch. I can put my email address in. I think that will help if you want to keep in touch.
There's also a question, I think it's from Samantha. I can't see the whole name. I see Sama, so I think it's Samantha. Do you translate words? Do you translate words when they don't understand, or do you give a definition in that same language, say the word in context? I think you have to do a bit of everything. So translate the word, you know, to what you would use back home. Also give a definition. You know, if it's a child, an image sometimes speaks more than 1,000 words than a definition. Yeah. And then use it in context. So give them a sentence with how they could use the word, get them to repeat the word, get them to give you a sentence, and then go back to that word a few hours later to see what they've remembered.
For high school, where I'm currently working, they're very keen on doing the definition in English. So if they don't understand a word, they're giving a definition in English. And I think that's fine, but I agree with you, Claudia, that maybe you could do it several ways. And I think, you know, telling them the translation and like you say, visual props, because sometimes it just adds to the confusion. We're talking about kids who are about 13, 14, 15. And if they don't understand a word and you give them the definition in English, quite often they just don't really understand and they get frustrated. And
I was going to say, we use that a lot here, because imagine we've got year 10 students. Let's get an example. We've got a lot of new beginners in year 10 and they're in a science lesson. And, you know, the immediate thing is, okay, I'll translate this apparatus, the name of this apparatus, into Spanish. They may not have any idea what that is in Spanish themselves. So one, it's going to make them think that they don't know what the word is in Spanish. And two, you translate it into English and it's completely lost. So I am a big fan of visual aids and using that in the context of sentences, and, you know, getting students to use it, students, my daughter as well, make fun games around it. So it's a way of just incorporating that vocabulary all the time.
Yeah, I have to say over here, they've introduced a lot of bilingual schools in the last 10, 15 years. And unfortunately, there's a lot of subjects like technology, science, geography that they teach in English. And unfortunately, the level of English of majority of the students is lacking a little bit. So it's very difficult for them to understand concepts which are already slightly difficult, like biology or a lot of history as well, and they have to learn it all in another language. You know, for them it's a different language, and I just think that the system at the moment isn't quite working. It's a shame.
I think that's more mainly for Spain, because here in the UK, we know that we don't really have bilingual schools. I think there's one, the Spanish school, that's the only one that I know of. I think there's another French one, but I'm not too
Brighton,
sure.
Yeah,
where they are. I do think that, you know, bilingual schools are great, they're amazing, but you know, if, for example, I've got students that have come from the Spanish school in London, and there's always a lot of vocabulary lacking, but that's simply because the education systems are so completely different. You know, going from Spain to what we use here in the UK. So that's why I think you have to be very conscious of translating words. And, you know, Spanish is a wonderful language. But like I say, here at the school, we speak lots of different Spanishes, because words that I will use in Colombia, they will not use in Ecuador, which they will not use in Bolivia, and they will not use in Spain. So it's all about taking that into context. But I think what you need to do, you know, if it's a family or if it's what you're writing, stay authentic to yourself. So, you know, if it's, I get lots of families worried about Spanish GCSE, because they're like, oh no, is it going to be the Spanish that they speak in Spain? You know, I always sort of reassure them, don't worry, that we are, you know, we're very, very aware of the different vocabulary terminology that's used throughout Latin America, South America, So, you know, we take that into consideration. I mean, most of our students are Latin American, but as long as it's authentic to yourself and your family and your own upbringing, I think that's very important, because if not, your children will feed off on that. And also, if you don't feel, you know, and this could be for maybe first, second generation families, you know, sometimes you might not feel that confident in your, you know, in this case, in Spanish. That shouldn't deter you from wanting to pass that language on to your child, because it will still be a benefit of them. You know, you don't have to be fluent to teach your children your home or your native language. You know, please just pass on this gift of language that you have.
It doesn't matter if you make a mistake as well, just do it, and you'll learn from your mistakes anyway. There's no, as you said, there's no point if you feeling too self-conscious, or you think, oh, I'm not sure if I said that right. It doesn't matter. You will learn, the child will learn. The main thing is that you're speaking a second language and you're learning about the culture as well.
Yeah, as you were saying before, Claudia, about how there's no disadvantages. I mean, my story is a very common story where my younger son has speech delay. And the very first thing that his speech therapist said was that maybe I should start talking to him in English. And she's now rectified that. She's now decided that that's fine. But even though I knew that it's, at the most, it would be a factor in a little bit of, not maybe delay, but in him having less vocabulary in Spanish. You know, I saw it with my daughter as well. When she was about 2 or 3, her vocabulary compared to her colleagues was slightly less. But of course, you know, you have to remember that she had a lot of vocabulary in a different language. But it's a very, very common thing, which when I was then looking into it, if it could possibly be a factor in his speech delay, which a small factor it might be, but it's certainly not the cause. But there are a lot of parents out there who are obviously worried that maybe it is causing some sort of speech delay in their children, but it could be a factor, and it's not.
Yeah, I think it's one of those myths that, you know, if you speak a second language, if you're learning another language, that it's going to somehow affect you academically. That's certainly not the case. We have statistics, and we can see year upon year with children that those EAL children, so let me clarify, EAL does not mean any children who are just new to learning, let's say, a language. So in this case, with students that I work with, EAL students are not only the ones that are new to the country and learning English. EAL students are probably everyone in this meeting. So if you have another language apart from English, regardless of whether you speak that language fluently, if you're constantly using it, you are still EAL. So all those children who were born in the UK, who have a parent or even grandparents where they use another language to communicate with them, doesn't matter if the children don't speak back, because we know what children are like, they are still classified as EAL. And this does not hinder them at all in their academics. You know, we see year upon year that EAL students outdo in GCSEs and A levels monolingual students. So that's statistics. We have that in, you know, in writing. They also leave school generally with 1 more GCSE or 1 more A level, because they can do, let's say the easy exam in their foreign language. I mean, I hear this all the time. It happened to myself with my own daughter. She was in year 2. When she started reception, she didn't speak really any English. We had to send her in with a list of words that the teacher had to say to her, or she would understand: agua, baño, chichi, for those of you that are Colombianos. You know, because we spoke to her only in Spanish at home. Year 2, I had a meeting with the head teacher because she was in the lowest set for literacy, and I wanted them to give her some support. I was told at the meeting as well, maybe you shouldn't speak to her in Spanish, and I just thought, okay, I'm going to leave this right now. she struggled with her English. It was nothing to do with being bilingual. You know, children learn at different rates. They develop their skills at different ages. She would say to me, "Mama, what job can I do without having to read or write?" And can you imagine a 6-year-old saying that to you? So in her mind, she was going to be a plate maker. I don't know where she got that from. She was going to make plates. I said, "Bueno, mi Lorenita, si quiere hacer platos, va a hacer platos." And cut long story short, she's now 18 and studying at Cambridge University. So I don't think bilingualism affected her at all in her life. It has been a positive impact in her life, and it is for all of us, regardless what careers or where we go on in life. You know, if you can help someone at the shop because they don't understand what's being said, if someone's lost, it's got so many benefits to it.
And it's really fun. I find it being really fun, especially as a kid. There was one occasion, me and my mum were on the bus, and there were these Spanish students on the bus, and they're just saying the most funniest things. And for the whole journey, me and my mum were laughing our heads off. They probably didn't realise that anyone around them could understand, but moments like that I'm always going to remember. So I just see it as being fun, and it can help you travel. And as you said, what you're saying about your daughter Claudia, it also took me a long time, when I think I was about 5 or 6, to learn to read in English, because I was learning both. But I think I was quite behind compared to everyone else. But my mum knew that's just, it's normal. You'll be fine. Eventually you'll get to your own pace. And I did worry as a child. I was thinking, why can't I read like the rest of my class? But it was because I was learning in both languages, and now I'm writing books, so it couldn't have been that bad.
Yeah, what you said about the bus, my mother one time was on the bus in Brighton. You know how many Spanish students there are in Brighton, and they were talking about her bag and saying how much they liked it in Spanish, having no idea that my mother completely didn't understand her thing. She turned around and said, "Thank you very much, I bought it in wherever in Spanish," and they were just like, "Oh." It is fun, and obviously with English and in Spanish you can communicate with most of the world, really.
Yeah,
and you need Chinese, and that's it.
I was delighted with this talk. Yes, very, very happy, because most of the things that you said, I suffered myself when I was teaching Spanish to my daughter. My daughter was born here in the UK 15 years ago, and it was really, I wouldn't say a challenge, because for me and for my husband, we both speak Spanish, and for us, it was really natural. But I was really sure that I wanted her to be bilingual, and she is. But I must say that she learned Spanish before than learning English, because for us it's really natural to speak in Spanish at home. Actually, it's the only language that we speak between us, because I learned also that children recognize language with people. So, for example, if I try to speak in English with her, she said, "Why are you speaking to me in English?" She doesn't recognize me speaking in English with her. She wants me to speak in Spanish. And actually, this was also a window for her to speak with her family, because if not, it wouldn't be possible even to send a single message over the phone. So I'm really, really happy that I did it. But I met a lot of people that, because it's an effort for parents too. You have to do something, even if it's natural. You have to read a lot. You have to. I remember when I was traveling to Argentina, I was bringing an extra luggage every time, with books, with music, with everything. 15 years ago, it wasn't so easy to find things on the internet. Now you can find a lot of things, but back at the time, no. So it was really, it is really an effort for parents too. But I think that is a compromise also. And it's something that you are giving them for free. So yes, I was really, really, as I say, delighted with all the things that you said today here. And I think that it was really also inspiring to listen. So thank you. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you.
Today.
Gracias. Y también iba a decir que sí. Todo el mundo piensa que uno porque habla español en la casa, que uno habla español, que bueno, que va a ser facilito enseñarle ese idioma a los hijos y no lo es. Pienso que es mucho más difícil porque uno tiene esa barrera de culturas, la cultura acá británica, la cultura, pues en mi caso colombiano, la suya argentino, y es un esfuerzo, pero lo importante es no rendirse, ¿no? Seguir eso, pasarle esa belleza del idioma a su hijo, poder hablar con los abuelos, con los tíos, saber que aquí desayunan, no sé, el toast and beans on toast, pero en Colombia desayunamos con una arepa. Entonces, incluso eso es una cosa maravillosa y la verdad, si tienen hijos, por favor, pásales eso de hablar otro idioma, que la verdad es una belleza y les va a abrir puertas en todos lados del mundo, si entran hablando otro idioma, con el inglés, que también sabemos que el inglés lo hablan por todos lados, pero el inglés y el español, una belleza totalmente.
Sí, como he dicho antes, lo de los desayunos, aquí en Sudfido, tostadas con Marmite, que comemos solo en esta casa. A mi marido no le gusta nada, pero a mis dos hijos le gusta mucho el Marmite porque son ingleses.
Bueno, acá comemos dulce de leche.
Ay, qué rico, pero nosotros le decimos arequipe.
Sí, me encanta. Sí, me encanta. Compré una vez en el centro un dulce de leche colombiano y era riquísimo.
Sí, el arequipe.
Riquísimo. Bueno, muchísimas gracias a las tres entonces. Thank you very much and let's be in touch.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.